Hey, I'm William, and in this video, I'll be talking about the history of Cherokee Park, which is in Louisville, Kentucky. I'll also be talking about some of the tragic events that have happened in the park over time, and I'll be discussing some of the urban legends around the park. Now, this is a park where the land for it was acquired in 1891, so it's been around for quite a while. Been over 100 years, so I'll be talking about the park, what's happened in it, urban legends. Here we go. Cherokee Park is a roughly 400-acre park that is located in the Highlands neighborhood in Louisville, Kentucky. The park opened in the 1890s and has been a very popular place in the city since it opened. It draws around 500,000 visitors annually. The park was designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, who also designed popular parks such as Central Park in New York City. Olmsted developed a number of parks within Louisville, with Cherokee Park and Shawnee Park being other prominent parks that he designed. The park is home to many activities, with the 2.4-mile scenic loop being a place for running, walking, and cycling. The loop has one-way traffic for cars and trucks and a separate lane for non-car traffic. Other amenities you can find at the park include an archery range, basketball court, hiking and mountain biking trails, a golf course, a rugby field, picnic areas, playground and spray ground facilities, public restrooms, a dog park, a large pond, and Beargrass Creek runs through the park as well. Within the park, there is a statue of the Greek god Pan atop Hogan's Fountain. It is close to the Hogan's Fountain Pavilion, which is a large covered area used for picnics and gatherings. It is currently closed due to concerns over its structural integrity and other safety concerns. The pavilion has an interesting look and is often referred to as the Witch's Hat. Big Rock Park is an area where there's quite literally a large rock in the middle of Beargrass Creek. People will frequently swim and wade in the creek in addition to jumping off the rock into the water below or using a makeshift rope swing. The area also has a playground and picnic tables. There is also a covered shelter. Although you will often see people swing in the creek, there are multiple signs indicating that you should not swim or fish in the creek. There are also concerns about the cleanliness of the water. There are hiking and mountain bike trails that run throughout the park, in addition to paved multi-use paths that run through the park. Between the trails and scenic loop, the park is a very popular place for cycling, hiking, running, and walking. Within the park, you can see plenty of wildlife, with deer being a very frequent sight. Raccoons, squirrels, turtles, possums, beavers, groundhogs, and other animals can be seen in the park, with many types of birds being seen as well. There are even some reports of coyotes being seen in the park. With the park being located within a city and having multiple areas for people to gather, it's no surprise that over the years, the park has been a place where people go to party. There have been reports of vandalism or other minor crimes throughout the park. Going through at nighttime, you will typically run into other people. The Big Rock area is typically crowded and heavily used anytime there is decent weather until well after dark. So I am riding through Cherokee Park at nighttime. I figured that if I'm going to discuss some of the more tragic things that have happened in the park and some of the urban legend type things, that it would probably make sense to go through at nighttime versus the bright daylight. So I'm riding through the park now and figured I would kind of go through some of what the darker elements of the history of the park are. Because this park's been around for quite a while. It was one of the parks that were developed by Olmsted for the city. We'd also done a video about Cherokee Park a while back. And it had, unfortunately more real-life tragedy that happened, but it also had some urban legends. So in Cherokee Park, I went and and looked through all the information I could find, and I found a few instances where people had died in the park, and now there could have been others that were in the past that just weren't as available without going through physical newspapers from decades past. But just looking at what was available online, I found a couple of instances of kind of tragic things happening. So in 2014, there were two things that went down in the park. In the beginning of the year, or earlier in the year in February, there was an incident, and two, I go back and forth on talking about stuff that would kind of qualify as true crime or things like that, about discussing the victims' names or the killers' names. And I think what I landed on is, what I'll do is I will just put the stories that I got the information from in the video description. So if you want to go see all the full details and all the victims' names and and perpetrators' names and all that, you can go find that in the articles. I'm just going to talk about what happened in general. So in 2014, the beginning of the year, February, when it was snowy out, there were a few men that had robbed a bank on Barstown Road and, fled from the cops. And then one of the guys went through Cherokee Park, and when the cops had closed in, he shot himself. And it was by the sledding hills where people were sledding because it was, snowy out. So unfortunately, that's something that multiple people saw. We'll go past that area. And that was in 2014. And that was earlier in the year. And then later in that same year, there was an incident where there was a 12-year-old boy who was with his family at Mid-City Mall, which is a little distance away from the park. It's a mall that has some different stores, a library, restaurants, grocery store. It's not a full-size mall that you would, see in a multi-acre parking lot with, 50 stores and what you think of a mall. It was more of a smaller mall in like a kind of urban bar, restaurant district type area. So the 12-year-old boy ended up talking to a 21-year-old person who was there, who apparently was homeless. And then the 12-year-old ended up following the 21-year-old back to his makeshift tent, or their makeshift tent in the woods by Cherokee Park, where they would sleep. And they ended up in some type of altercation with the 12-year-old, in which the 12-year-old was stabbed in the back and in the stomach and died from the wounds. So there's a couple of instances where people, have died in the park. And then in 2019, at the Big Rock Creek area, where people like to swim and all that type of stuff, an altercation started between a few men, and there was a young man who was shot and killed at the park area, by the Big Rock Creek area. So there's been a number of people, unfortunately, that have lost their lives in the park. Let's see. And it's supposed to be a full moon tonight. I'll have to turn all my lights off. Oh. Oh, shit. so that's not as visible on the camera, I'm sure, but so I guess I picked the wrong night to come up here because there's a lot of people. But I'm on an e-bike. So I'll go to the Hogan's Pavilion area. So the area that I was just at, trying to look at the full moon, that area and in general around there, a lot of people will go sledding in the winter because there's nice hills that go down, and you can park and walk over and sled. But there's the two instances like that, or the three instances where I'm aware of someone dying. I think in all three cases, the person was injured in the park and then ended up succumbing to their wounds in the hospital. So although the injuries occurred in the park, the people did not actually pass away in the park, which, you know, people talk about ghost stories. I don't know if it matters that the person actually died at the location or somewhere else, but that is three things I'm aware of that's happened in this park. And then there are urban legends that there's a statue of Pan that's been in the park for quite a while. And there are urban legends that the statue comes to life at nighttime and will roam the park and cause mischief and damage. So the statue is just a statue of Pan, and it has some paint on it where people have thrown paint on it, but there's a fountain, and then there are, at the bottom of the fountain, there are some little trough areas where water comes out, so if you have a dog, you can get your dog some water. But, so the urban legend is that the statue here will come to life. Now, do I know that do I believe that the statue comes to life? Not necessarily, but the urban legend is that it will come to life and roam the park. It's rumored that it's either midnight and kind of any night maybe, or just midnight when there's a full moon. And tonight there is a full moon, so it's not quite midnight yet, but when the 12-year-old was stabbed, it was said to have happened by the Hogan's Pavilion area, which is kind of up in this general region where I'm at now. And then off in the distance is probably not super visible on camera, because it never is unless you have a telephoto lens or something, but it is a full moon. However, the fact that there's quite a few people up here means that it's not creepy at all. Smell some marijuana, or what I've been told it smells like. But it seems like some people up here are taking advantage of some leisurely activities. But yeah, so I'm not really aware of too many other stories of things happening in the park. Now, I'm sure that there are a lot of events that, you know, supposedly have happened in the park, and I'm sure that there's urban legends that people have, they've passed along between them and their friends. about things they've seen or heard or things that have happened. You know, I'm not privy to all those kind of individual stories maybe people may have. I'm just aware of what I was able to find via the research, you know, going online through the local newspapers and news stations, and just kind of talking to people that have lived in the area. But you know, this is just kind of going through the heart of the park. I've come through this park at nighttime a lot. Never really encountered anything too crazy. Sometimes there'll be a lot of bugs that you will ride through that will get in your mouth, your eyes, or whatever, depending on if you're riding a bicycle or something. You know, some people may have wished that I had brought some equipment up here, like a spirit box or EMF reader, or I guess now apparently some people use cat toys, like the little motion activated light up cat toys are now apparently ghost hunter tools, but I don't quite know what those would accomplish. But yeah, I don't really use any of that stuff. I just kind of like to go right around, because like a lot of times people on ghost hunting stuff, they will you know, stay in a house or a confined location, use a lot of equipment. I, you know, go for these night rides through outdoor locations where I'm not really concerned about running into any type of supernatural or paranormal thing. I'm just concerned about the people that you run into. And luckily I haven't ever really ran into anybody that caused any problems, but you never know what you'll run into at nighttime. But supernatural, paranormal wise, I know I've heard people say that they think Cherokee Park is haunted. I've never seen anything myself. Not to say that nobody has, but just personally I haven't really encountered anything. So too, before I wrap all this up, I will ride by the Big Rock Park area, which is where one of the unfortunate events that I discussed happened. So the park has a creek that runs through it, and then the Big Rock Park, you know, I think it's part of Cherokee Park, but it's not directly in the main chunk of the park. It's kind of on the outskirts of the park. So I'm heading over that way now, and unfortunately it's probably going to be pretty crowded. It always tends to be, but and it's sometimes kind of rowdy. I've come through here before when it's not even really that early. It's pretty late. You know, it'll be completely dark and there'll still be people partying at the Big Rock area. Sometimes with like loud music and stuff going on, where if I was a resident that lived kind of close to this, it'd probably be pretty annoying. So we'll see when we ride up here if there's any cars. I'll probably ride up can from there's cars over here. So right up this way. Because there's picnic tables and such up here. And then, I don't know if this is too dark, but there are literally, in the distance, so there's picnic tables, there's trees, there's a rope swing, and then out in the water there's a rock that you can swing on. I'm not sure how visible that is on this camera, but yeah, it's out there. So I'm gonna go around to the other side because there's also a, ow, I've never actually gone back through there on a bike, so I don't know how traversable some of that is. I'll ride around to the other side, because there's a little pavilion area that usually is also where people party. We'll ride over here and see what's going on, if anything. Yeah, I didn't expect there to be that many people at the park to see this full moon. Because again, with the camera and the angle that I have, it's probably not super visible, but it's kind of a red-orange full moon that, you know, to the naked eye is pretty noticeable. This is a wide-angle lens camera, so it's probably not anything if you're watching it from here. There's someone in the pavilion thing. Yeah, but there's the creek from the other side. Probably can't see any of it. I was actually able to go back later and get into this pavilion area when nobody was there. So this is what it looks like inside of the covered shelter picnic pavilion area at Big Rock Park. This is something that you can rent for events, but as you can see, it's usually pretty heavily covered in graffiti. And anytime the park system cleans this up, it usually gets covered in graffiti almost immediately within a day or two. So that was going through Cherokee Park at nighttime, going through the, you know, the scenic loop in the main part of the park, going through, come over here to Big Rock Park where the creek is, and kind of going through the different areas where, you know, things have happened, or letting you see what the areas that are part of the urban legends are. Since I came through here at nighttime when there was a full moon that apparently a lot of people were sitting out to see, it's a lot more crowded than I thought it would be, but yeah. That was going through Cherokee Park, kind of going through the history of it, you know, the kind of darker history. Yeah. Until next time.